You must have written an SOP before, right? They're probably sitting in a Google Doc somewhere, untouched since the day you wrote them. But here's why most SOP templates are designed from compliance perspective and not an execution and excellence perspective. You want to check a box, right? You want to file it away so that your audits will show you that you've done what you need to do, right? But what about actually having things in place that people use, stick to, and that actually make you great? Before I show you this awesome SOP template, I want to talk about why yours didn't work. Problem one, it might be too long. If your SOP is a 12-page document, nobody's reading it mid-task to ensure that they're sticking to the most minute detail. They'll read it once during training, maybe, forget half of it, and then end up doing things their way. That's a recipe for disaster. Problem two, you don't let them know about any kind of failure modes, right? Your SOP might say, oh, just send a welcome email. Great, but what happens when they don't open the email, when the email bounces? When there's an SOP without failure modes, that's a recipe, but not really a system, right? The recipe works when everything goes right, but a system truly works when things go wrong. Problem number three is having a boring name, a random, corporate mess that you put into a file in a Google Drive is not something people are going to follow or remember. Names matter, and so we want to fix that. Here's the structure of your template. 5 sections, 1 page. That's it. If it doesn't fit on 1 page, you're overcomplicating it. Section 1 is a name. You want it to be memorable and specific. Section 2 is a trigger, what kicks off the SOPs. Section 3 is your steps. Section 4 is the failure modes that I mentioned. And section 5 is their output, what done looks like. That's it. So let's walk through each one with a little bit more of a granular focus. In naming it, right? You don't want to call it the client onboarding process. Call it the first 48 hours flow, right? Don't call it your content publishing workflow. Call it your weekly content engine, right? Not the client offboarding procedure, but the clean exit sequence, right? You want to have a time frame in there. You want to talk about the outcome, right? Some kind of flow, protocol, engine, method that lets you know that this is something important that matters. Bring it to life, right? Because when you tell your virtual assistant to run the first 48 hours flow, they know exactly what you want. It's sticky, specific, and gets used. Build the habit of that specific thing as a part of your organization's culture and not, oh, here's another bland set of instructions. Every page has a trigger, one event that kicks it off. Not 2, not it depends, 1 specific trigger. If a payment is received, that triggers your onboarding. If a discovery call is completed, that triggers your proposal creation, right? A certain time of the week can trigger a weekly review. If you have multiple triggers, then you have multiple processes. You have to split them. Each trigger gets its own SOP. I see this mistake so often of people cramming 3 processes into 1 document because they feel related. They're not. Separate them. Section 3, the steps, right? The actual workflow. List every step using simple verbs. Send, create, call, review, update, schedule. And no more than 8 steps, please, because you're either over detailing or you actually have 2 processes hiding in 1. Don't sub-step unless absolutely necessary. If there needs to be a sub-step, make it clear, right? But you probably don't need one. So let's look at this 48-hour flow, right? If the trigger is that the payment is received, you send the welcome email. That's the first step. Number 2 is you create the client folder from a template. Number 3 is that you send the onboarding call. So number 4 is that you have the kickoff call, right? You can see that this is a clear and sequential process that a new hire can follow without asking you a single question. That's the test. Now let's talk about section 4, right? The failure modes that you might come across. And this is where most people would stop and probably not include. But this is where all the value is. You go back through each step and ask, what if this breaks? Step 1, say you send an email. Well, what if they don't open it, right? Your fix would be to follow up in 48 hours. What if the email bounces, right? You call them directly within 24 hours. What if you send the intake form and they don't complete it, right? Have a kickoff call link that doesn't unlock until the form is completed. Hold the kickoff call, but they had a no-show. Auto send the reschedule link. If they no-show again, flag it for review, right? This is the difference between a process and a system. A system describes what happens when things go right and when they go wrong. You want to have versatile and resilient systems. In the output section, we have to define what done looks like, not vaguely, but specifically, right? So in this 48-hour flow, it means that the client has received the welcome email, the folder exists, the intake form is submitted, the kickoff call is complete, the recap is sent, and the client is on the weekly review list. If any of these aren't true, then it's not done. This prevents I think I finished ambiguity that causes friction in delegation. So let's look at a completed one-pager again, all right? Going through this first 48 hours flow. Again, the trigger is that your payment was received. Step 1 is you send the welcome email. Failure looks like it doesn't get opened, and if that happens, you follow up. Step 2, create the client folder from the template. Step 3, you send the intake form. Step 4, you schedule a kickoff call. Step 5, you review that intake form. Step 6, you hold the kickoff call. Step 7, you send a recap and a timeline within 2 hours. And step 8, you add that project to your weekly executive review. When all of that is done, you have these outputs to double check that should be trackable and traceable. And all this comes from a one-page document. So I challenge you to pick one process you do every week in your business, your most repeated one. Map it out using a template like this. Name it something memorable. Write down the failure modes and keep it to one page. Please do this tonight, not next week, tonight, because the difference between people who build systems and people who just talk about them is just one evening of work. So I'll put the blank template in the description. You can download it and fill it in. If you want to see which of the 8 major systems in your business needs this work the most, then you can also take that free scorecard down there. The link is below.